and gentlemen, time now for this afternoon's ministerial panel discussion. Please welcome to the stage our esteemed panel members. His Excellency Karim Balat Badawi, Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources, Egypt. His Excellency Engineer Sharif Al Olama, Under-Secretary for Energy and Petroleum Affairs, United Arab Emirates. And Professor Francesco Corvaro, Special Envoy for Climate Change, Italy. Moderated by Landon Darrence, Vice President, Energy and Infrastructure, Atlantic Council.
Gentlemen. Fragmentation, competition, opportunity, and as Lorenzo spoke of collaboration, these words are shaping global dialogue. And as the world continues to adjust to new political realities, the lights must stay on, industry must remain powered, and new technologies, not the least to say AI, artificial intelligence, must be enabled, scaled, and sustained. That is why we have this panel with us today, and it's precisely the role of these leaders joining me here on stage to balance these competing priorities as we examine how governments can deliver a strong and balanced energy future. Gentlemen, welcome. It's great to share the stage with you today. Let's jump in. Minister Badawi, I really want to begin with you and kind of lay a foundation for what it means to have a competitive energy system. When we look at Egypt and how you positioned the country as a regional energy hub, a growing upstream producer with LNG infrastructure and regional cooperation frameworks, you've given some thought to this. And from a strategic perspective, how does your ministry view Egypt's position over the next decades, and how do you strengthen the position you have as a stable energy supplier for the region?
Very good. Thank you very much. And first of all, it's a great pleasure to be here. And I really want to thank you, really, Lorenzo, for the invitation and for all the Baker Hughes team, because Lorenzo and Baker Hughes have been really a key strategic partner to Egypt for decades. So it's a great pleasure to be here. When we look at the Ministry of Petroleum and Mineral Resources in Egypt, we've really built 6 key pillars, right, which frame really how we're positioning Egypt and how we want to leverage Egypt's potential to unlock, the energy that is needed not only for Egypt but as well for the region. And as we speak, you will see also how it kind of echoes a lot of the rewriting the energy equation that Lorenzo talked about today. The first pillar is really around how we can provide the petroleum products, for 120 million people today in Egypt, and setting the scene for many more in the future, how we can provide that in the most, cost-effective and, lowest carbon, emission possible. And to do that, we are focusing on how we can unlock the potential from our upstream, domain, in terms of how we can increase the productivity from our existing fields, how we can do that with proper reservoir management and leveraging all the possible different technologies, available, and how we can also accelerate the pace for exploration. Exploration is very important for both oil and gas, to be able to add the future reserves, to be able to bring into production, again, that would be required for Egypt and as well for the region for the future. The second pillar for us is really based in terms of infrastructure. And again, it ties a lot with what was mentioned a bit earlier on this morning. Infrastructure, Egypt is blessed with really a very robust infrastructure in the petrochemical sector, in the refinery sector, in the export terminal, sector, and also lately with an infrastructure actually of FSRUs with the input capacity of 2.7 BCF, gas per day. And all of this infrastructure, which hasn't been built overnight, it's an infrastructure that's been built, based on, decades of investments in Egypt, with, great leaders and great, teams. And I take the opportunity to also say hello to my dear, Predecessor Minister, Tariq Al-Mullah and many others who really built, this massive infrastructure, which again, we are really focused on how we can maximize extracting value from this infrastructure to be able to provide the energy needs, that is required. The third pillar for us is on the mining sector. And again, mining is very important. And mining is very important because today, from a country perspective, it constitutes for only less than 1% of our GDP. And we are really kind of aiming to take this to 5 and 6% of our GDP in the next few years. Mining is very important because it plays a role into the localization of industries in terms of minimization of import materials. It also provides an avenue for job creation. And mining is also very important for all the different kind of technologies which are required as part for the energy transition and also for all the renewable technologies and so forth. The fourth pillar for us is really around how we're building an energy system which is based on the right energy mix for Egypt. And that's why I'm saying the right energy mix for Egypt, and really leveraging the land that we have, the sun that we have, the wind that we have. And this is why with my dear friend and colleague, the Minister of Electricity and Renewable, we've revised really our energy strategy for Egypt to have 42% of our energy mix to come from renewables. This is something which is very important for us because it removes the pressure from dependence on gas, where today 60% of our gas goes into power generation. And at the same time, it provides us the ability to leverage that gas for value-added derivatives on where it's needed. The fifth pillar for our strategy is really working on the people element. And this is why the health, the safety of our people, the climate, for the future generations and so forth is also very important and integrated with energy efficiency, how we can really kind of embed really a culture which looks after the people, a culture which looks after the environment, and also a culture which looks after energy efficiency. Last but not least is collaboration. Collaboration is imperative. Egypt is blessed with a location, between, three continents, with, Middle East, to our east, Africa, and then Europe, and Europe with an infrastructure, roads, airports, railways, petrochemical refineries, how we can enable this infrastructure to unlock the full potential that has from the subsurface in the East Mediterranean to essentially the places where this energy is required. So collaboration is a key sixth pillar for us.
It's a busy six priority sets, and I actually enjoy having Minister Al here as well, because part of that collaboration comes from organizations like the East Mediterranean Gas Forum and platforms that you've been incubating as a country for some time. I will come back to you a little bit more about the jobs and the industrial strategy in a little bit, but I want to turn to Undersecretary Al Olama and focus on a fuel that we didn't mention yet. I think a lot of times, certainly in the U.S. context, we look at the supply side and we talk about the upstream. But having spent some significant time in the Emirates and believing, there are other more comprehensive perspectives in terms of what we can discuss, one area that I feel we should talk about is energy efficiency, often referred to as the first fuel. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how governments can move from ambition and targets, which is often where governments are, to actual real delivery. How do we see that with energy efficiency?
Yeah, thanks, Landon. And again, my sincere appreciation to Lorenzo. Thank you for inviting me over here. Finally, I made it to Florence. I will build on what His Excellency said. I think the fifth pillar he mentioned, and it's a critical pillar, which is the energy efficiency pillar. There is no doubt in my mind, energy efficiency is the fastest, lowest cost, least disruptive option that we have and solution to actually cutting down emissions. There is a very good saying that we always use in the Emirates is the best form of emissions reduction is simply the kilowatt hour that you don't consume. Not only does energy efficiency help in that angle, it also supports energy security, especially in areas and regions where we see that there is fast and growing energy demand. The challenge when it comes to energy efficiency, Landon, is we see it in execution. And I will bring back certain commitments that were signed off by 133 countries during COP28. Two major outcomes were from COP28. One was tripling renewable energy, and for that, we are seeing vast amount of improvement globally. The statistics I have is we are currently at around 40% of the 11,000 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity that we are supposed to install by the year 2030. Now, the other side of the coin is we had committed to doubling energy efficiency from 2% to 4%. Unfortunately, today, on a global scale, we are doing at best 1.8%. If you do the math, the 1.8% being short of the 4% will result in 2030, you requiring 27,000 gigawatts of installed renewable energy. So the 40% that we have achieved today actually is around 16.9%. So we're chasing a moving target, and that's where the challenge is. My advice to governments is we really need to take our commitments, we really need to drive our commitments decisively and urgently. We really need to transform our commitments into action, into policies, into measurable targets that we monitor and we deliver. Putting all of this context in together, we in the UAE have a success story. We implemented a demand-side management program almost 3 years ago. The numbers that we have achieved so far, 15 million tons of CO2 has been eliminated, and we've saved around $2 billion in terms of actual savings on the ground. So it is economical, and it makes economical sense. Saying that, we as the UAE are used to actually not keeping to ourselves and delivering what we preach. We like to take these kind of practices globally, and that is why we took the initiative of forming GEA, the Global Energy Efficiency Alliance. Basically, this alliance targets to transforming energy efficiency commitments into bankable and investable projects. It also focuses on actually getting together all the stakeholders into one decisive platform. You have government officials, you have financiers, you have technology providers, you have NGOs, all gathered into one platform where they can share all the best practices, all the policies, all the regulations that can make this journey happen. Every unit of energy we save, and this is very, very important, frees up additional capacity in our grids. It's no new news to all of us. There is 600 million people in Africa that do not have basic energy supply. And working on our energy efficiency can solve a lot of that problem.
Francesco, I think Undersecretary Al Olama bringing up at the COP and the policies and the 3X of renewable energy ties together with a thread that I want to discuss with you, which is the idea of balance that Lorenzo spoke of earlier. As energy demand continues to rise, how should we be reconciling this energy future with sustainability strategies and climate change? How's Italy thinking about this?
Good afternoon to everyone. Thanks for inviting me, Lorenzo. It's a great pleasure in this amazing location and events. So first of all, in my opinion, the title Energy Equation is perfect. I am a university professor, so I love very much equation. And probably someone is thinking why a climate envoy is here in this meeting, because I believe that it's time to change the narrative behind the climate change. We are normally speak about energy transition, but we have also a geopolitical transition and also a climate transition, not crisis. It's our duty to avoid a crisis. But right now, we are in a transition period. And first of all, to accept this, we need to recognize that we have solutions and we have possibilities to act, but using a pragmatic approach. How can we translate this pragmatic approach? We have to remember that also in the climate, we have an equation to balance. If I will decide for a policy in climate change, I need to evaluate the cost, economic, social, environmental. And the question is, this cost is higher or lower in comparison with the possible damages connected with the climate transition? If this price is higher, this policy is not good. And we are working in Europe to send this message. We need to align the climate policies to this. Otherwise, we will spend a huge amount of money to obtain what? Nothing. Because we need to remember that for the future, we need to have an sustainability that must be under the economic, social, and environmental point of view. I want to give you two examples. The first one is the mobility. Italy is working hard to stop the idea that from 2035 we have only electricity vehicles. Not because we are against electricity vehicles. No, this is not true. We want to use all the technologies that we have to reduce the emission, and the only one is not the electric. We have, for example, the biofuel. Is another technologies, and if we want to be pragmatic and to achieve the target of the climate, we need to follow this pathway.
If achieving pragmatism in the climate narrative and the balance that we're looking for as we move through energy transition is multifaceted on technology, it also is tied to what Minister Badawi, I think it was your fifth bullet, which was people. And I want to key in on that one in particular, because as you look at new energy investments in Egypt, energy investments globally, how are you translating that to broader economic opportunity into jobs for people? Because I think the sentiment, global sentiment is weighing on our ability to be effective as policymakers.
Yeah. No, thank you. And it's all actually about people, collaboration, technology, and the concept actually of energy equation, so that ultimately you come with an outcome which is a win-win for all the different parties, especially the investors and for the government, and hence to be able to unlock that potential. So, in Egypt, this is what we've been, doing really over this, this last period of time is how do we really kind of unlock the potential? And if you look in the upstream domain, was really how, again, working with the people, with the stakeholders, and putting everybody together to look at what is the right economics, which is good for shareholders, for investors, and at the same time, which is also good for the country, which ultimately results in deployment of investments to accelerate, unlocking the subsurface potential from whether it's oil or gas, because this creates job creation, this creates unlocking this energy, which can really fuel the feedstock that can unlock, industries to thrive, and as well to be able to provide, the value from the natural resources. And this is what we've been working on in terms on the upstream front, and realizing that Egypt economics, for the different parts for upstream, whether it's in the Mediterranean, where there's infrastructure, is different than where there's non-infrastructure, where we have already existing infrastructure, where we're looking at how we can lower down the cost per barrel, how we can lower down the cost per scat. The same thing is really trying to work in terms on how do we really can unlock the potential of the infrastructure to create, again, the link between people, collaboration with other countries, and I give usually also the example of what we're doing now with, with Cyprus, of how we can help, the people of Cyprus to unlock the potential from their subsurface, resources, leveraging the infrastructure that exists, in Egypt, to be able to avail those molecules to where they're needed, whether in Europe or for the local market. When we look around the room, there is, we have so many partners from different parts of the world that are also creating also these opportunities, which are also looking into the, the new energies which are green or low carbon, like sustainable aviation fuel, like being able to leverage renewable capabilities to be able to bring in green ammonia, with, we have a project, for example, with MOPCO, with Scatec, to be able to deliver to Yara Petroleum, green ammonia and so forth. So it all interacts really kind of very well together. And it's all built in terms of making sure that we leverage technology and that we also make sure that we are open to doing things differently. And this is why we always talk about how to have incentive frameworks, for the private sectors and from our partners from around the world, to be able to ensure that we can attract the right technologies that is required, to make sure we can attract the right partnerships that are required, and to make sure that we can ultimately have increase of local, gas production and oil production, minimize import bill, create more jobs in terms on our petrochemicals, in the refinery and as well in the fertilizer for food security, and ultimately creating this collaboration between all parties.
Undersecretary Al Olama, just to keep the conversation going as we look at time drawing down here, the minister paints a very comprehensive picture of the energy system. And if we're trying to maximize the value of that system, one thematic outside of political leadership changes in 2024 and 2025 that really carried over into this past year was artificial intelligence. Yeah. And that is, how does that factor in here as we look to maximize all of the aspects of the minister's vision for how he's trying to work in the energy system in Egypt?
Yeah, I think AI is creating a structural and long-term growth in the energy and electricity sector that we're seeing. And this has been unprecedented. It's no doubt, it's not a short-term spike. This is something that is going to have a detrimental effect as we go over the next decade or so. I think the challenge that we're seeing with a lot of governments is in terms of planning and accurately planning all of this growth that they are anticipating. And also to make sure that they are providing around the clock 24/7 reliable power, as well as you have the challenges that are related to cooling and the water demand that are required for this kind of expansion we are seeing. In the UAE, we have taken a very pragmatic and structured approach when we have addressed the challenges of AI. Of course, we are lucky in the UAE that we do have a diversified source of energy. We have nuclear, we have fossil fuel-based, and we have vast amount of renewable energy. At the same time, we are capitalizing on artificial intelligence in our smart grids, especially in forecasting and dispatch, and also in predictive maintenance. But the numbers are staggering. Like, I was just looking at the figures. In 2024, there was around over 400 terawatt hours of power demand for data centers. And this number is predicted to go over 900 by the year 2030. So there is unprecedented around, I think, 12% growth, annual growth in power demand on data centers. If you look at the AI aspect only, in 2017, 2 terawatt hours, in 2023, 40 terawatt hours. So this is a big challenge that is coming for all governments, and this really needs to be addressed ahead of time. You really need to plan properly, you really need to have all the technologies available. What we have done in the UAE is we have created a task force that the ministry is leading, and we have looked at all the aspects that come to data centers. We have created a platform that identifies the ideal locations for data centers in the country. We're creating what you call a free zone for data centers that makes sure water source, electricity source, and renewable source are all in the vicinity. We have also looked into technologies. There are technologies we're looking into that provide cooling at chip level that reduces power consumption for data centers by up to 40%. And last but not least, we are trying to come up with a rating system for data centers. This has not been done on a global basis, but I think one factor is energy efficiency. And we want to start rating our data centers in terms of how they rank from an energy efficiency perspective as one parameter. But there are many other parameters.
Francesco, I'm going to stick with technology just to close out, before I go to the minister to close out the conversation. And, you know, we're looking at a huge amount of energy demand that the Undersecretary is discussing here when it comes to just data centers, industrial growth, population growth, demographic growth. So what are the technologies that you see the greatest potential for advancement at this point? And you know, how are we going to make sure that they are realistic and investable over a longer horizon?
So I believe that there is not only one winner in this kind of challenge, but we need to use all the technologies that we have. Italian government believes in this, and for example, we accepted the challenge to reopen a big discussion in Italy in the nuclear sector. This because we believe that it's time also to change the idea behind the energy security. I try to explain. For a country like Italy, it's tough to speak about energy security. It's better to understand that we need to move in the risk management in the energy security. So to accept this, we need to create a sort of energetic mix where nuclear, geothermal, renewable in general, natural gas must be used at the same time to answer all the challenges that we have now and in the future. We heard some minutes ago about the importance of artificial intelligence, data center, electrification, air conditioning, and this is we are only at the beginning, because thanks to my job, I had the opportunity to visit the developing countries in Africa, and they are looking about a lot of electricity.
We clearly could have much more time to deep dive each one of these issues. I do want to go to you one final time, Minister Badawi, and just say, look, you're in a room full of global CEOs from a very diverse background of an enormous amount of different technologies. What is it you're looking for from a ministerial side, from a government side, from a policy side, that you need to see from them to make you more successful at your job, and we know that you're trying to do the same for them?
Thank you very much. So actually, I would say it's not from them, it's from all of us, actually. And I'll use actually one thing that Sheikh Nawaf mentioned about actually in our industry, in our domain, and in providing the energy. It's really about working together. So I like the concept of actually we need to stick together. We need to be open to be sharing best practices. We need to be open to be really working in terms on new way of doing things, how we can lower down the cost per barrel, how we can lower down the cost per scuff of gas, how we can lower down the carbon intensity, because it's a win-win for everyone. And this is why the concept of kind of rewriting this energy equation is actually a very nice way to frame it, because the way we see it, and the way we see it also as Egypt, is the success of all the different countries within the East Mediterranean. Whenever, for example, you're looking in terms on the energy front, is a success for everyone, because it attracts investment within the region. By collaborating together, we can unlock those molecules, make them available, where it is needed at the lowest cost, and the most efficient way, and really drive the economies, for the region and so forth. The collaboration partnership, with the region, with the Middle East, the collaboration with Africa, the collaboration with Europe, the collaboration with the US. I think it's, the key is collaboration. Our industry and delivering energy is something actually which unifies, is something which actually helps, kind of unlock energy where it's needed to drive economies, job creation, and value creation for everyone.
And I think collaboration is the theme and inspiration for the next 48 hours here in Florence. To Baker Hughes, to Lorenzo, to the team, thank you for having us. Gentlemen, what a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.